It's truly exciting to be here with you all this evening. This group, because of what you embody and because of all of the work you have done for me and others like me, you mean the world to me. I was so touched to be on the receiving end of the invitation to come here this evening, and it really does mean a lot. That said, I need to be upfront about a couple of things with you this evening. At most of my speaking engagements, I usually feel like a young guy with way too much energy. I feel like I'm forcing excitement out of the crowd. But tonight, speaking in front of the most enthused group of Democrats in the state, I started to be a little self-conscious and notice in the bathroom some of the gray hair that's popping in up top, and dare I say it, even feel a little bit old in this room, which is not something I usually feel in Democratic dinners. So it's an odd feeling, but I hope you'll bear with me as I use the term our generation this evening in talking about some of the issues we face, and politely grant me that title along with you all this evening. Secondly, I hope you aren't expecting a vanilla presentation, focus group tested ideas completely free of controversy. You're probably going to leave a little disappointed if that's what you're expecting this evening. As I was preparing to speak with you all this evening, I kept coming back to this idea of the power that lies in a single day. In politics, one day is immeasurably important. When it comes to elections and campaigns, politicians and strategists make their decisions based on the idea of winning the day, being on top of the pull of the moment, or making sure that we get positive press coverage by the time the sun sets. We calculate and prepare our messages in hopes that we can stay ahead of the ever-evolving 24-hour news cycle. And the other side, of course, is that it takes just one day for it all to come crashing down. Just ask any of the former public servants who were marred by what started as just a single day's breaking news. Don't get me wrong, things don't have to be crassly strategic like this. I suspect many of you, have grown tired of the over-planned and over-prepped politicians that dominate both sides of our political landscape. We've also grown tired of one day's worth of news unfairly judging the service and devotion of an otherwise well-meaning public servant. Sometimes, though, it takes just one day for the most extraordinary things to happen. It was August 28, 1963, when Dr. King stood on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in the shadow of one of our greatest presidents and shared his dream for a world of equality. This dream and the promise it captured changed the course of history forever. The lesser-known part of that story is that Dr. King was just 34 years old when he delivered these remarks that would shape political philosophies for generations to come. As we reflect on the recent and final launch of the space shuttle, we are reminded that it is in a single moment in July of 1969 that the first person tread across the surface of the moon, showing us that our hopes and aspirations could be within reach, no matter how impossible they seemed. This giant leap for mankind confirmed that innovation would lead us to brighter days, and that chasing the impossible could lead to accomplishments beyond our imagination. Neil Armstrong was under 40 when he accomplished that remarkable feat. More recently, it was one November day that hundreds of thousands of voters, young and old, of every race and background, came together in local churches and schools to cast a vote for our first African-American president, and in doing so turned the state of Indiana blue for the first time in 40 years. There are a few theories out there as to why Indiana turned blue on that day last November, 2 Novembers ago. The cynic might argue that now President Obama invested millions more dollars in Indiana than others have in the past, reinforcing that sad and scary belief that fundraising prowess is the only key to electoral success. Old school politicos might even give Hillary Clinton credit. After all, had we not had such a hard-fought primary in Indiana, neither candidate would have had the name recognition to win again later in the year. I think a third theory is true as to why Indiana turned blue that day. When you slice and dice the numbers, look at where we were successful, look at where the margins were most in our favor, the answer is pretty clear. As others have said, Indiana was blue in 2008 because of the people in this room, and you ought to give yourself a round. As we join together tonight, we find ourselves in a moment just as critical, though perhaps not as obviously so, as some of the moments we've mentioned tonight. Tonight, we have the opportunity to commit, gathered amongst like-minded friends, to not settle for status quo and sterile ideas any longer. We can choose to reject pandering to the right, and we can challenge the idea that we have to keep looking at the same faces to lead us in the right direction. We have before us tonight a chance to say that a new day is fast approaching in Indiana politics, and we are going to be the generation to make it happen. Our current political reality points to the urgency of our work, of the obligation we have to step up and double down our efforts. As you know, Republicans hold all of the statewide offices, both houses in the Indiana General Assembly, and a majority of our congressional seats. The ink is yet to dry as pundits have already begun to write about the death of the Indiana Democratic Party. The consequences of this kind of unilateral control have been extremely clear over the last couple of weeks. One after another, controversial pieces of legislation are making their way through the State House. Issues like immigration and gay marriage have taken the spotlight. Issues that do require thoughtful and deliberate consideration, but issues that should unite all Democrats. But rather than working together on what's best for all Hoosiers, Republicans just want to push their bills through. We've seen legislation that seeks to create government so powerful that it would prevent women from making medical decisions over their own body. And we've even seen a so-called right-to-work bill that devalues the very people who have literally built our state over the course of our rich history. Rather than bringing everyone together, our Republican legislators just keep pushing. This is the kind of radical, discriminatory leadership that has taken over in Indiana, and it seeks to forever set back the progress of the many great Democrats who have gone before us, fighting not just for working-class Hoosiers, but for all Hoosiers. Things are so bad in the Capitol in Indianapolis, we might be tempted to look away. Maybe in Washington, the world's image of a civilized government, things are going a little better. Sadly, there too, we find Republicans riding into power on their empty promise to create jobs, instead focused on nickel and dime spending cuts rather than finding bipartisan ways to tackle entitlement reform, or finding innovative ways to boost domestic manufacturing or to help small businesses make it through our economy. We find an energy policy that has gas approaching $4 a gallon. And perhaps worse, we've discovered a Republican majority who arrogantly panders to the powerful elitists that led us to the economic meltdown we faced in the first place. A number of our Indiana representatives have even decided, as Congressman Donnelly mentioned, at a time when we should be striving to improve education and make it more affordable, they would rather cut funding to Pell Grants than make college possible for those who might not have had any other way. Rather than working for a brighter future for Indiana and our country, Republicans just keep pushing. There must be better news. Surely there are young Democrats serving in these bodies, leading the charge for a new way of doing business. After all, around 70% of people under the age of 30 associate themselves with our party. They believe in the things that we believe. By the next election, in fact, estimates show that we will be almost a third of the electorate. Our representative democracy must include us somewhere. Despite our mass and power, both nationally and locally, both in the power structures within our own party and in our great legislative bodies, that representation is not evident. In our party, we find a power structure designed to be nearly impenetrable by upstarts seeking to involve fresh faces and new ideas. While misrepresentation of young people is certainly a bipartisan issue, it makes me especially sad to report that the two easiest examples of young legislative leaders are both playing for the wrong team. In the Indiana General Assembly, we've got Northern Indiana's own ultra-conservative Tim Wesco as the only voice of our generation. In Congress, 535 members strong, the only voice of the age group that we represent is conservative Republican 29-year-old Aaron Schock. The young people in this room, the young Democrats around our state and our country, need to forge a new role for ourselves within our party, and let me tell you, we are ready. In light of what seems like challenging losses and difficult barriers for our party, the pundits, Republicans, and even some of our own have forgotten that in the wings sits a group of young people who are ready to meet the challenges facing us today. Friends, it is on our shoulders as the next generations of Democrats and Hoosiers to lead the way forward. It's time we start pushing back. Critics keep saying that 2008 was a fluke. They say that the 80,000 doors we knocked on, the 130,000 phone calls we made, and the 30,000 new voters we registered in Indiana was a one-time thing. They think we can't do it again, but we are ready. They keep saying that, sure, we'll go to the rallies, we'll get riled up, but we won't vote, and we most certainly won't run for office. They keep saying that our generation isn't ready to lead. But look around this room. We are ready. When it comes to transforming the political system, building upon generations of Democrats, and making our party a force to be reckoned with, we are ready. But it's not just about us, because we recognize there is already an even newer generation taking form behind us. When it comes to taking responsibility, to finally owning and fixing the problems facing our nation, we are ready. I close tonight with a message for Governor Daniels, Speakers Boehner and Bosma, and Mike Pence. A message aimed at Richard Lugar or Richard Murdoch, it doesn't really matter. A message aimed at Todd Rokita, Marlin Stutzman, and Larry Bouchon. A message aimed at Todd Young. To these and other Republicans who would rather tear our communities apart than build them up. To those who believe it's better to marginalize our neighbors than to include them. We hope you are ready, because we will not sit back and idly wait and watch any longer. The mantle is ours to carry, and we are ready. Thank you.